Hello and welcome to a very, 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 very special episode for many reasons. First reason, this is the first episode with three panelists ever, which is pretty cool. It's going to be a bit different for me in the editing, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure out something that looks nice. Um, Another reason that's special is that I'm joined again by Vanessa and by Chris, who have very graciously come back on to join me on my music ramblings about an artist that no one cares about as much as I do, Harry Nilsson. We are tackling Harry Nilsson, the discography, the man who caused my rebranding, you know. And I guess as we like to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got into his stuff. Um, the first song I ever heard consciously from Harry Nilsson was Everybody's Talking when I watched Midnight Cowboy when I was 16. And I was like, that's a great song. Listen to that song loads. Um, and then, when you get into music, you kind of, there's like a lot of hits that you've heard like around. And then you're like, oh, that's from this person. That's from this person. And then obviously I recognized Without You. And I was like, I know another Harry Nilsson song. Um, In fact, actually, the first Harry Nilsson song I probably heard was Jump Into the Fire because it is used in the Goodfellas soundtrack, which I saw when I was 14. So maybe that definitely predates 16. Um, and but in terms of like, so I knew like the odd song, and then I went record shopping one time and I picked up Nielsen Schmilson for like £3 secondhand, really cheap. I was just like, oh, I'll buy it. And then I listened to it and I liked it. And then I put it back on my record shelf thinking nothing of it. I thought that was the only album of his I'd heard of. So I was just like, that's probably his only album. Um, and then I, on a whim one day, was like looking through like the radio music charts and I was like, I've seen people talk about this aerial ballet one. I'll check this one out. I liked it a lot. And then I was like, oh yeah, I've got Nielsen Schmilson on vinyl. I'll go listen to that some more. And then sort of this whole rabbit hole unfolded from there, where I just went back and listened to all of these uh, slowly. So, a very rare discography where I was familiar with everything before this episode. And I was just doing a lot of re-listening and yeah, couple as usual. I felt with the re-listening, it's never going to be exactly the same as the last time you went through it, but there's not going to be much drastic change from what my list was. So yeah, Vanessa, what about you? Harry Nilsson, how did it all start?
Well, I knew a few of the songs. Like I knew Everybody's Talking. I knew one. I knew Without You. More other people's versions of it, though, I would say. I listened to a couple albums last year when you were going down your rabbit hole because you were talking about them a lot. So I heard Aerial Ballet, Nielsen Schmilson, and Son of Schmilson, but that was it. So everything else here is a new listen for me.
I think actually, Son of Schmilson was you were the one who got me to listen to that one when we were doing
Yeah,
number
I think that was the first
two.
one I ever heard. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'd already
originally.
heard Nilsson Schmilson, and you were like, Son of Schmilson's also good. And I was like, there's another Schmilson album? Turns out there's three. Anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you? Harry Nilsson.
Uh, my first exposure with Harry Nilsson was in 2005. Coca-Cola ran this ad campaign for Lime Coke, and they altered the song Coconut by Harry Nilsson to say, "Put the lime in the Coke, you nut." Like you're a nut, you idiot. Put lime in this. And I loved I didn't love the commercial. Like I didn't I don't really drink a lot of Coke, right? But um loved the kind of tune, thought it was fun. Found it on whatever torrent site I was using at the time, Kazaa or LimeWire, and it was properly attributed to Harry Nilsson. So that was what I was aware of at the time. Had him on my little 20 song MP3 player. Listened to that song a lot. Thought it was hilarious. Used to do the voices, and and then I became aware of a couple of other songs later. mostly ones from, I mean, I knew One and Without You. Um, that was really about it. Um, until I met you, Tom. And then I was aware of more of his music. But even once you were talking him up a lot, I think I listened through Ariel Ballet, Nilsson Schmilsson, and Son of Schmilsson, and that was about it. So almost all of these were new to me. Um, Obviously, we'll talk more, but there's a lot of covers, so there's some familiar ground within the songs and um, all of that. But yeah, this was mostly new and overall a great experience. So
Um, yeah, I mean that's going to be something that we're going to talk about. I love Harry Nilsson as a songwriter, but his two biggest hits are both covers. He's done a lot of covers over the years. In fact, like we'll get to it, but I think there's some albums where there are only like two or three original songs on there that aren't the specific covers albums, which also
Mm.
exist. So it's a lot of stuff to get into, but what better way to do it than to just start off with the ranking? Because there's three of us and there are 14 albums. Ideally, this won't be the most ridiculously long epic of videos in the history of time. So we're going to blitz through the bottom four, and I will go first. Then we'll give it to Chris, and then we'll give it to Vanessa to finish us off. So, my number 14, Flash Harry. Not a surprise, I don't think, to most people. It's a bit phoned in, feels a bit like label obligation, is kind of the vibe I get from it. Not sure if that was the case. It opens with the Eric Idle sung Harry, which is a bizarre way to open the album. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of like weirdness here. I think there'll be a trend that this sort of the later adult contemporary type stuff. It's not going to rank super high with me. Um, yeah, there isn't really any songs that I love on here, but it's all pretty pleasant. I think the typically jolly cover of Bright Side of Life is a very nice way to close the discography. It's not the best cover that he did by a long stretch, but it's nice. So totally biased, but 6 out of 10 for Flash Harry. I think it's fine. It's. Am I going to seek it out? No, but it's listenable. 13, Sandman. Um, yeah, kind of similar thoughts. I think this does have some really, really good songs, though. It's just there's not that many of them. Something True, I think, is proof that Harry still had the occasional knockout great tune in his locker. Nothing else on the album really comes too close. Thursday, Here's Why I Did Not Go to Work is a pretty fun song. He's sort of got this like tropical, like easy listening vibe going on with this and the album before this one. Um, this does have his worst song in my opinion, which is the Flying Saucer song. I usually find Harry quite humorous, and that song is him trying really, really hard to be funny and for like 5 minutes, and it's like. Ugh. But I think How to Write a Song does hit me on the humor level. It's a pretty fun song, and then you get the second version of Jesus Christ You're Tall, which I have a soft spot for because, well, I'm quite tall, and that's about all I got. Fairly good effort from Harry. Couple standouts. Again, I'm biased. I'm going to go for a 7 on this one. Enjoyable. I would I would probably listen to it again. Um, and there are some good songs on there. So number 12, Do It on Monday is my number 12. This has the first version of Jesus Christ You're Tall, almost like a demo version. And this is his most like tropical sounding album with like the steel drums. He really loved the steel drums at this time. There's a jungle out there, pretty catchy. But this album, I think, along with the album just before it, is the one where his vocals sadly are the weakest. And whereas on the album before this, being Pussycats, it kind of adds an edge to his music, which he doesn't have before then. This it just the music's so like soft that the vocals kind of aren't that great. But this does have more standouts than on Sandman. I think Kojak Colombo is really fun, really nice horns. Enjoy that one. Puget Sound, very good as well. Um, and then, yeah, another unfortunate thing of his voice kind of waning is the guest singers on this album and on That's the Way It Is. Very distracting, especially since the first few albums he's doing all his own backing vocals, and then you just have this like really cheesy like gospel vocalist come in. You're like, what, weird. But I think this album is really good rhythmically. I think Klaus Voormann and Jim Keltner do a really good job. They're sort of the backbone of Harry's like weird shit throughout this discography. And yeah, it's pretty fun. I actually quite like the production. It really is just the guest singers and the the his vocals as well, which drag this one down a little bit. Number 11, final of this stretch. That's the Way It is my number 11. Definitely a lot better than the bottom three. There's no escaping that he's past his prime, but I still think this is a good album. I think this has some of his nicest covers. I think his version of George Harrison's That Is All is lovely, really great arrangement, really like passionate vocal. Um, it's just a solid pop record. I think I Need You has a nice sound, cool acoustic guitar on there. Again, really nice vocal. This is the best his vocals have sounded since the unfortunate voice incident with John Lennon. But as yeah, it's not his best. But as is the case with this sort of bizarre period of his career, great songs are here to be had. It's almost wild that these albums even got made and he didn't just like stop. He just kept going. I think his rendition of Sail Away, maybe his finest Randy Newman cover, it is really, really, really good. Yeah, Daylight, fun little rocker. The production isn't quite as cheesy on this one. Zombie Jamboree has some nice humor on it as well. Yeah, nothing special. But I will probably see this one out again. And especially the covers of That Is All and Sail Away. It's another 7. I enjoyed it. So who did I say next? Chris? Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will share a couple of those, of course. My number 14 is Flash Harry. Not a lot to say about this one. I think it kind of sucks. I hate to say it. I respect Harry Nilsson a lot. I don't like the production. I don't like a lot of the backing vocals. The Eric Idle stuff feels kind of cheesy, and it really just kind of feels like he's throwing the towel here. Um, the good news is it's not very long, and it's not on Spotify, so I won't like accidentally listen to it. That's great. Um, no, I look, this it did feel like the end of a career. It kind of sucks that it had to, end like this. But it's kind of understandable based on where he was at and kind of the tumultuous end that, that he saw. So it's not my favorite by a long stretch. We'll do much better than this. I give it a 4. Um, sorry, Harry. So that's number 14. My number 13. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry, you guys.
I know what's coming, yeah.
My number 13 is The Point. Um, this is just wild. Um, I didn't know how to rate this album when I went into it. It's this, you know, the town is like just this story track, and then it goes into Me and My Arrow, which is kind of a great track, actually. Um, like out of context, I think like it stands alone as a good song. Um, and then you realize the whole album is this concept album that's like every other song is spoken word, and it's just this excessively plotting acid trip inspired record. And the story is kind of fun, like if it were like a children's book. Um, but given how much spoken word is needed, I just think a record was the wrong medium for this story. I don't think this was, for me, it does not, I know what he's going for and it doesn't work for me. Um, like I said, hard to rate this.
I
Some songs for what they are pretty good.
I think
Sorry.
it's worth. Yeah, sorry. I just sorry to cut across, but it's worth pointing
Yeah.
out that it was the soundtrack for a TV movie that he wrote the songs for, and Ringo Starr, I think, did the narration, and then they kind of just re-recorded the narration with Harry doing it with music underneath. That's kind of what it is. So maybe you've got a point there where they could have just left it and just released the actual songs as like an EP or something. Yeah.
I've got a what there, you said? Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyway, uh yeah, I think with some helpful context, this could be nice, like in the background of a show or to a cartoon or some kind of story. I would kind of understand it, but the narration tracks just pull me out of anything that I kind of like. Um, Are You Sleeping is kind of nice. And Me and My Arrow. Those are highlights for me. I give it a 5 out of 10. It's good for something. That's my number 13. Sorry, I know that one is beloved. I think that actually might be his highest rated album on Rate Your Music, which is insane to me. My number 12 is Do It on Monday. Um, this is a complete departure and for the worst to me. The Calypso vibes do not gel with what I think Harry's strengths are at all. Just stop the steel drums, for crying out loud. His voice is really strained, and like you said, Tom, the kind of the edge that he had on Pussycats, and then I think what the voice would kind of transform into. Um, this is an awkward middle point, and it comes out at the worst points. And I don't really think most of the songs are effective. Nothing is like overtly offensive here, but I didn't really enjoy it. I do give it a 6 out of 10. Um, we're going up. We're going up, okay? All right, and my last bottom four is probably presumably it's Sandman. This one is the thing that it suffers most for me is kind of forgettable. Like I listened to it and I wrote some notes and then I'm like, I don't even remember a lot of this. Um, Here's Why I Didn't Go to Work Today is pretty funny. That's probably the highlight of the album, but I think the 7 Minute Saucer song just sums up most of how I feel about the record. There's still the steel drums, still the production I'm not really hot on. Um, I it sucks. I like Harry's voice. Um, I just think it's a shame some of these records around this time kind of feel like self-sabotage. Like I'm not sure why it was necessary to make them, and I can't help but feel like he could have made some tremendous art out of this. But it just kind of feels half-assed. And Sandman gets a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, we're not too far apart. That's cool.
So I got some of those in like a different order.
Makes sense.
So my number 14 is Do It on Monday. Um, the Calypso stuff. I was not feeling that. Because it just kept happening. Like every song, I was like, no, not again. Like after the first one, it was just like, why are we doing this? So yeah, definitely my bottom. I mean, it's not terrible. It's all right. Like the songs are not bad, but just that aspect, I just was not into that at all. And the song What's Your Sign with Gloria Jones, like she just kind of overshadows him entirely, and it's just too much. It just doesn't work. So yeah, it's a bit all over the place. Um, and there's not a lot of memorable songs for me, and that was really the first point in the discography where I felt that way. So, and maybe that put it down a little lower right from the get-go, because after that I was used to that idea, but it's definitely my bottom for that reason. And I kept trying to pronounce the title in French in my head, which messed me up for a long time. Could not remember what it was called. But anyway, 6 out of 10. So I mean, it's not bad. And then my next is That's the Way It Is. So I don't know. Didn't feel the love for that one that you did, Tom. I don't know.
Where's Flash Harry?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. But I don't know. I don't even really have a lot to say about it. It was too many covers and the backing vocalists they really overshadowed in a lot of ways, and I just really wasn't one that I would go back to. Out of all the albums, like none of these bottom ones are bad for me, really, but they're just not the ones I'm going to listen to at any point. So it's another 6 for that one. And now we have Flash Harry. So yeah, same thing. Like I already don't really remember it, and I listened to it like 2 days ago. Like that opening track was a pretty funny way to open the album, but then it kind of just goes down that hill from there. Except for there's like one other song that I liked. Oh, Old Dirt Road. That was a good song. I liked that one. But other than that, it's decent. Disappointing, especially after the one that came before it. So yeah, 6 again. And then Sandman, which I liked better, actually. It was really close to a 7 for me. I thought that there were actually some good songs on it, but not enough to go to a 7. Like it just wasn't quite there. It was a little uneven. There's good songs on it, but there's some that I really didn't care for that much. And there were some cool experiments and fun lyrics, but again, it was just not a go-to album. So it's only up from here though. Another 6.
Sweet. So we'll go one apiece from here on out, I think. And I think, yeah, I think we all had Flash Harry in the bottom 4, and I think we can all agree that the album before it would have been the perfect way to close his career, and he just had to make another one. So, my number 10, I will say, I love Harry Nilsson. I don't have a particularly conventional list, and my 10 and 9 might lose some people. My number 10 is Nilsson Sings Newman, which I like, obviously. I like all of these apart from like the bottom 2. It's kind of, it's hard for me to really get to love this one. Obviously, I've heard it twice now. The songs are just over so quickly, and the album is over. It's like 23 minutes long or something. It's so just breezes by. I still think it's really good. I think the best aspect of it is that these are Randy Newman written songs. He is playing the piano in the studio, and Harry Nilsson is singing them. I think that level of intimacy really shines through in the material, and you can kind of tell that they were friends. They have kind of a good chemistry performing together. And some of the covers are really good. I think especially Living Without You is unbelievable. Like the vocals on that song are tremendous, especially the do 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 at the end. Like that is, yeah. As far as I think he added that just for this version, just at the end, and I'm like, that's just showing off, Harry. You don't need to do that. And I actually personally prefer Nilsson over Randy Newman as a songwriter. I've listened to some Randy Newman and I like it. I think his songwriting is a bit cynical and cold for me. And I know there's like an element of humor, but I don't know. I don't really gel with his songwriting as much, and that's the main reason this is down this low, because I'd rather hear Harry Nilsson songs a lot of the time. I think he does the covers really well, but yeah, I like Love Story, You and Me as well, and Vine Street. Those 3 would be my, and So Long Dad as well. So there's some good stuff. But I think a lot of people would rank this higher. So, whoopsie.
Well, that's okay. I just trashed the point. So, let's see. My number 10. I'll talk about that one soon. I thought I had it kind of low, but thanks, Tom, for breaking the ice on that. My number 10 is A Little Touch of Schmilson in the Night. Straying even further from the last 2 before this, this Schmilson character does a full-on standards records like it's the 50s. And it's so overtly orchestral. But I think it sounds pretty good. I think his voice sounds good, and the instrumentation choice is good. You know, it's all covers. So the song selection, there's some you know, some deeper cuts here that I wasn't really familiar with. I didn't know all of them were covers at first, you know. Um, so overall, I think it's pretty good. Um, Pretty similar track to track. He's doing the same kind of vocal thing, and the cadence just feels kind of the tracks just kind of blend together for me. And I definitely lost where I was a couple times. I'd look down and I was like 2 tracks ahead of where I thought I was. So, you know, not the most engaging record. Though I do like respect the creation of something like this. I think it's you know, I do think it's interesting. Um, let's see. It had to be you and Making Whoopi. I liked. Um, but you know, if I'm searching for like a standards record, I'll probably, you know, turn to like Sarah Vaughan or something. So sorry, Harry. I like it. It gets a 6 out of 10. Um, that will be my last 6 out of 10. So again, it's all up from here.
So my number 10 is The Point, which hard to put that much higher. Like, I don't know. Like, I liked the songs on it, and for what it is, I think it works better than anything else I've ever heard like this, which I can't say there's been many albums I've heard that were like that one. But like for a book on tape, basically, it was pretty cool. And like I was following the story and I was enjoying it, but like I'm not gonna put it on regularly. Like I'm not gonna say, I want to listen to The Point today. Like I just don't think that's gonna happen. But I do really like the song Me and My Arrow. I think that works really well outside of the context of the album and within the album as well. And the way that it flowed together with the narration and the music, like it flows really nicely. Like for what it is, it works great. Like it's not a bad by any means, but it's just maybe just unconventional to what I would listen to, I guess. So it's hard to put it any higher. And but I guess it does have a fan following, which makes sense. I mean, it is pretty cool in a way. And it's quirky and fun. Like I like the story. Like it's a fun story. I was into it. I enjoyed listening to it, but I only did listen to it once, I admit. It wasn't one that I decided to go back to. So 7 is where I'm going to keep it because like again, I enjoyed it, but that's about it.
I can respect that, but I'm going to be talking about that much, 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 much later. Which is gonna maybe get me some cred with the people at Rate Your Music, but any Harry Nilsson fans watching are going to cut my head off for this one because my number 9 is the debut Pandemonium Shadow Show. This has some Harry Nilsson classics on it. I won't deny. 1941, Without Her, Cuddly Toy. Never say a bad word about any of those songs. They are incredible, and they are a lot of the reason this album is as high as it is. The issue I have with this one is a lack of identity. This is pretty much the Beatles meets Phil Spector, the album. There's not much like Harry Nilsson originality being put into this, even covers a Phil Spector song and 2 Beatles songs. So, yeah, I think what I really get out of the later stuff is his personality and his sort of unique way at making records, which I really connect to. And I think this is a really good start to his career. But I see people putting this right near the top of his best albums, and I don't really see it. But that said, there are worse combinations than Phil Spector meets the Beatles. I think 10 Little Indians is a very fun way to open. Mention 1941 and Cuddly Toy being amazing. They are. Yeah, I think You Can't Do That is. I don't like this cover. It's just like Beatles reference, Beatles reference, Beatles reference, Beatles reference. It's like very, very hackneyed and not very good, I think. I think Sleep Late, My Lady Friend has some really great vocals, probably the best on the album. Again, the cover of She's Leaving Home, he was on a very small budget. but it's not really something he should have attempted, I don't think, because the Beatles version is so grand and the arrangement is so lush, and this version just doesn't compare at all. There Will Never Be another one I'm not too big on. But yeah, Without Her is so understated, and just that opening, just bass line with his vocals is so cool. Yeah, it's been so long. Really nice track. And yeah, River Deep Mountain High, pretty good cover. Um, Pretty unlike almost anything else he's done. It's really like honing in on the wall of sound type thing. But yeah, I enjoy it. I'll go back to it. But I think it's a little bit overrated, maybe.
Okay, fair enough. I'll talk about that later. Not that much later. Come on, let's be real. Um, my number 9 is That's the Way It Is. And I kind of like this one more than I thought I would, actually. Um, it's close to an 8. I can't quite get there, but there's a couple odd choices that I think weigh it down for me, but I actually like going through it. I really like a lot of the songs here. Um, I don't mind some of the backing vocals, and he obviously is pushing his voice a bit. But I think the sound it's creating is not too aggressive, kind of like it was on some previous works. And I can feel like that there's still passion here. So I kind of feel like some frustration, and I think it works pretty well. Um, Standouts are like Just One Look, Maybe I'm Yours, which is a duet. Moonshine Bandit, and maybe my favorite, She Sits Down on Me. um, there's still some steel drums, the calypso vibes, like just won't die. But I think in smaller doses, it's like digestible, and that actually works. So I think this was a nice kind of break, little oasis in the low of the later discography for me. So I give it a 7. It's like a high 7 though. I like this one. So there you have it.
Right. My number 9 is A Little Touch of Schmilson in the Night. Really difficult one to rate and rank. I like there's so much about it that is impeccable. I mean, the arrangements by Gordon Jenkins are impeccable. His singing is impeccable. The songs are the Great American Songbook. Like everything about it should be great. And it is. But it's not what I want from him, I guess. I don't know. Like, and I think that's really the big problem with it. And well, not really problem, but just like I just didn't really know how to feel about it almost. Like it was weird. Like I enjoyed it when it was on, and I would put it on again in certain settings. Like I think it would be like a good dinner party record or something. Not that I really have dinner parties in that sense, but if I did, I'd put this on. But right after Son of Schmilson, that's not what I want. And I don't know how other people felt about that, because when I look back at some of the critical reception of these at the time, Son of Schmilson was not well received. So maybe people were happy about it. I don't know. Yeah, like that's basically what it boils down to. Like it sounds great. He sounds great. Like, and the songs are great, but it still can't go above his original material. So it's a 7. And I like it, but yeah, it's where it falls.
Yeah, very interesting thinking about the critical reception, because watching the documentary, Son of Schmilson happened and his producer was like, you need to sort yourself out. Like, you need to write another hit. And then he's like, I think I'll do a standards album. And then his producer quit. It's like yeah. I don't, to be honest, I don't think the people who didn't like Son of Schmilson paid attention to Harry Nilsson after that point.
No, probably not. Yeah. I
But
read the original Rolling Stone review of Son of Schmilson. It was pretty funny. They weren't very happy with it.
Yeah, and none of us have mentioned it yet, so interesting.
Yeah.
We can keep talking about A Little Touch of Schmilson in the Night, and I agree on it being very hard to rate. I've got it as an 8 actually, because for this style of music, it's a 10. But in my personal listening, like, I guess what it is that, like Vanessa was saying, it's like if you're having a dinner party or a very specific mood, I will chuck the whole album on. Will I ever listen to any individual songs from this again? Is probably my biggest like issue. But I think it's a really well constructed, well made album. From the amazing arrangements, as you mentioned, I think I'm gonna put my hat down on this and say this is maybe the best his vocals ever sounded, which makes it even crazier when it gets to Pussycats and you're just like, oh my god, like, yeah, we'll get to that. But uh, yeah, what am I going to say? Yeah, Lazy Moon, really lovely. I like how they sort of interpolate as time goes by the melody of that song throughout the album, and then when it comes to the end, which I don't know about you guys, that was probably the one I was most familiar with of all these standards. Um, and when that comes at the end, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So it sort of has this like coherence throughout, which works really well. It's very well thought out. Um, yeah, very well sequenced, amazingly sung, really lovely, calming listen. I think it's pretty great for what it is, but it is what it is. So it can't be any higher on the list than this. So number 8, Little Touch of Schmilson in the Night.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't the only one to have that kind of low. Um, I agree. It's good for what it is, but it's not the style that I want from him. Um, okay, number 8. This could be a bit of a hot take. We'll see. I did say the last one was a high 7, so I kind of skipped from 6 to high 7. There's not a lot of low 7s here, but I have a couple high 7s. Um, this one is Harry. Number 8. Yeah. And I think the highlight of this record is really his voice and some of the humor in the songs. There's this song Nobody Cares About the Railroads, and this album is old now. It's like decades old. So that sentiment being that old, it's like definitely nobody cares now. They didn't care 50 years ago. Um, I think the backing vocals, harmonica, violin throughout are just quite nice, and it's kind of country flair that he has going on. No one's really talked about this yet, but I think we're kind of getting into more of this, are the mouth sounds. Um, he loves his voice, obviously, and he's got a lot of just fun vocal flares. I don't really know what to call what he does, but you know what I'm talking about. And the wah-wahs on I don't know, Fairfax Rag. He's wah wah wah, and it's kind of folky. It's really fun, and I don't know. I think this album overall is pretty effective. They're kind of some jams throughout, and the album flows pretty well. I think cohesively, it's a little bit weaker than some of the other stuff, which is why I have it kind of low. But I don't really have a lot of negative to say about it. Um, like Morning Glory doesn't feel too inspired, but I don't think it's like a bad song. And then the next ones kind of I think are similar, but um I think I guess The Lord Must Be in New York City into Rainmaker is like a great one too. I actually love both of those songs. The drum sound on Rainmaker is sick. Um and I kind of think that would have been a great end to the album, but the end is just kind of fine again, and that's kind of my sentiment. So I think it could be a little bit more fun. I think he really goes for it on some of these tracks, and then others just kind of um I don't know. His voice is nice, but I don't really care, I guess. And so there's a few definite standout tracks, and I think he's still getting into the swing, but he's becoming pretty confident with his voice. And um, I mean, his voice, no doubt, sounds really great on this. So, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of negative to say. It's just I don't care about some of the songs as much. It's a strong 7. It's my number 8.
It's also my number 8. So it's a solid entry into his discography at that point. Sounds great. He sounds great. There's no bad songs on it, I don't think. There's some that don't stand out as much, but a lot of the times those are the ones that he didn't write that's what I found. But it's hard to compete with just some of the other stuff that came out around this time and just after it. Like, and so that's kind of why it ends up here. It's definitely worth hearing. I noticed it was actually bolded on Rate Your Music, which I thought was a little surprising because compared to some of the ones that aren't. So I don't know about that one, but like I really like the song Nobody Cares About the Railroads Anymore. Like I think that one, that was a lot of fun. And I actually like Morning Glory song Morning Glory Story. That was a standout for me. But the two Bill Martin songs, the Fairfax Rag and City Life, were my least favorite. I don't know, just wasn't feeling those ones as much, but I didn't dislike them. But yeah, it's the kind of the same idea. Like it sounds great. He sounds great. It's enjoyable. I've listened to it a few times, but it's still not going to go any further, especially compared to what's ahead of it. So it's an 8 for me, but probably like a relatively weak 8, but still. So we're already into the 8s at 8, so we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, any fights we were going to have would have happened by now. So we're in plain sailing now, where it's just going to be happy times talking about Harry Nilsson because we're in the top half of our lists. And I would say my top 7 is like what I consider the essential Harry Nilsson sort of canon. I mean, like you're not going to listen to Little Touch of Schmilsson in the Night if you're not a Harry Nilsson fan, really. And there are some people would have Nilsson Sings Newman or Pandemonium in the top 7. You guys do. So, but that's what makes it interesting. And I'm very intrigued, but also quite happy that I'm the first person to mention this album. My number 7 is Pussycats from 1974, his 9th album, also an 8, quite a bit stronger than Little Touch of Schmilsson, though. It's like my 7, 6, and 5 are like all just like that close from being like 9s for me. Like it's like there's just like 1 or 2 elements from just like and for Pussycats it is really the song selection, a lot of covers, especially Subterranean Homesick Blues. Who needs that? Who thought I really want to hear what Harry Nilsson can do with Subterranean Homesick Blues? Not me. That said, Many Rivers to Cross, that is quite the cover. And I think as the entrance into this new phase of his career, he's really like belting it out, but he can't belt it out because his voice is it's heartbreaking, honestly, to listen to. And then there's the bit at the end where I think I keep listening very close to it, but it's like the many, like with the 2 vocals, and I think that's him and John. And it might not be, it might just be him twice because he sounds fairly like John Lennon when he's like shout singing on this. But it's also that sort of like painful like cry at the end, especially like the I guess I'll have to try as his voice like cracks and breaks. God, that song just rips me to shreds every time. And I could say the same thing about Don't Forget Me, which especially after he passed, like the sort of thinking about him passing, I should say, really, it's a really touching ballad. And then typical Harry Nilsson style, he follows this like really touching, heartbreaking ballad with All My Life, which is just this humorous, fun, like romp of a song. And then you hit another stumbling block for me, which is Old Forgotten Soldier, which is really the song where Harry's vocal limitations are the most apparent. He can barely get through the song, and it's rough to hear. It's really upsetting, really listening to parts of this album. But in its own way, it's this like really intriguing mess that I kind of love. The John Lennon production is kind of a love-hate thing, I feel like. Sounds a lot like a John Lennon solo album in a lot of spots in terms of how it's produced. Save the Last Dance for me is bordering on overproduced, but I think it works. I think it holds together. Mucho Mongo, Mount Elga, Fun Little Jam. That's sort of the first of like the tropical vibe, which maybe we didn't need so much of it, but the first entry is pretty cool. I like it. Loop De Loop is pretty fun, but it's Chris was talking about like wanting Harry to make these like artistic statements, but I don't think he was that bothered. I think he just wanted to get like blackout drunk and be with his mates who just happened to be like Ringo Starr and Klaus Voormann and John Lennon. So, he just like, oops, I made another album, I guess. So yeah, it's the best stuff on this album is like top tier, and that's going to be reflected in my songs list. Don't worry about that. And it's a very, very interesting project. I can forgive some of the lesser moments because it is fascinating. It's like equal parts fun and I don't want to say harrowing, that's probably too far, but just like hearing the degradation of his voice is just, it's not always a fun listen, but there are some fun songs on there. So Pussycats is landing at number 7. I probably would have had it a couple spots higher without re-listening. Maybe just the mood I was in at the time. Like I said, 5, 6, 7 is really tough for me. So yeah, really, 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 really like Pussycats.
Yeah, fair enough. And I did say I wanted an artistic expression, but I guess I think higher of Pussycats than you, so I'll get to that one later. My number 7 is Nilsson Sings Newman. Um, I think this is a pretty fair um, spot for this one. I do like it a little bit more than Harry. I think the songs are pretty well written. I think it's a great sort of cover album. I think I also prefer Harry Nilsson over Randy Newman. So, um, it's definitely kind of interesting. The songs are a lot more straightforward, a lot less of the vocal flair that I kind of have grown to like. Um, a lot less brass, less kind of overall instrumentation, and more just kind of straightforward singer songwriter. Um, so it's a little bit less fun in that regard, I think. But the vocals are so good, and the emphasis on them in the song writing, the songs themselves is, it really kind of establishes him as an expert, singer songwriter, even though these were borrowed songs, right? Um, so I think Love Story You and Me is just like perfect. It's just like a beautiful. I love the vocal and the piano melodies. It just sounds awesome. Um, then Yellow Man. Um, so I think it's like empathetic in nature, but just a really unfortunate title. Um, anyway, moving on. Caroline. I like that one. Uh, Cowboy, just this vocal and wind kind of intro. Not sure if I like the intro so much, but then it breaks with the piano, and I kind of like it. I kind of like, even though it doesn't really evolve into much else. Um, I like that one. So Long Dad, pretty nice. Obviously, Harry Nilsson didn't like his dad so much, um, so there's history there. Overall, I like it as a collection of songs. I think as an album, maybe it's not quite as like um I don't know. I want to say it's not as strong as the sum of its parts because I do like it. I think it's a good listen. I'm not really sure what to say about it. I think I need to listen to it a few more times, honestly, and kind of digest it as a whole album. But several of these songs I really like and would pick out to listen to just individually. Um, I think they're nice and they don't have the same kind of cheesy air that a little touch of Schmilson had. So I think this is a much better kind of Harry style album for me. Um, and this will be my last 7. There we have it.
So the next few, the placements are hard. I kept changing my mind. So they could change over time, but my number 7 is Nilsson, however you're supposed to say it. And I really like it. Like it was a nice surprise after the albums before it. Like it's apparent immediately from the first song, which I absolutely love. The All I Think About You is a fantastic song. I know I will talk about it more later, but there's a lot of songs on this that I really like, but then there's a lot of songs I don't remember as well. So that kind of, it all works together when you're listening to it. And there's like those standouts that I love, and there's quite a few of them. But then the rest of it, it's just not there. So that's kind of why it falls just a little bit lower than it almost seems like it should for the amount I like the songs that I really love. Like I Love the first song. I love Who Done It. It reminds me of like an Agatha Christie mystery or something. Like you think Poirot is gonna pop out and solve the crime or something. They even got the poison element to it. So I just really enjoy that about it. It's just a fun song. I love listening to it every time it comes on. And Old Bones, that's a great one too. Just so much fun. Perfect Day. Sounds like a perfect day. Just a fantastic, just dreamy song. So yeah, like it was such a welcome change in the discography, listening in order. But even when I went back to it, it's still very strong. I still really enjoyed it. But it's just not quite gonna overtake the ones I have above it, just because of those songs that I don't remember as well, even after hearing it a few times. But definitely a strong entry into his discography, especially at that point. And I wish that he'd done a little bit more like this at that time. Like he obviously could. He made this album, but guess not. So it's an 8 as well. Stronger 8.
Yeah, I think like I said, we're all in agreement. That's where it probably should have ended. And it's going to come up for me now. Nilsson, as I will choose to pronounce it. Yeah, classic Harry to make a ridiculously, inconvenient to try and pronounce album title. It's very fitting with his personality. I pretty much agree with everything you said, almost word for word. There isn't a bad song, but there are obvious great songs, and maybe I have a few slightly different ones to you. I agree. All I think about is you is one of them. I think the style he's adopting here, this almost crooner style, is really, really cool. Very sort of low voice now, which I think works so well with these songs. It has this really unified atmosphere and mood. This is actually one of 5 Harry Nilsson albums I own on vinyl. So this is the first one to show up. And yeah, like despite its title, I never thought I'd get this lonely. It's pretty playful, actually. Vocally, he's clearly having a lot of fun for probably the first time in a few albums. I like Who Done It as well. Lean on Me is one of my favorites. Love the acoustic guitar and strings together. For me, Going Down in Old Bones and Sweet Surrender, kind of a bit of a drag in the album for me. But then I really like Blanket for a Sail, really sort of wistful, and Laughing Man probably has the best strings on the entire album, but far and away the best song is Perfect Day. And again, would be the perfect way for him to close his career. Why the hell did he make Flash Harry? It sort of stacks up to his best songs from his peak for me. It was actually used in the final season of Better Call Saul, which was the first time I heard it. That was before I'd heard this album. Yeah, all that said, it's no masterpiece. He'd done better than this, but it's quite miraculous for this point in his career to make an album this good. Pretty much the best you could have hoped for. So yeah, great songs, brilliant production, voice sounds really good considering everything. Nilsson, I'm gonna go with. This is my number 6.
Nice. Okay, I'm glad that one was reasonably high for you guys. I'll talk about that quite a bit later. My number 6 is Pussycats. There's so much lore behind this album, and it's hard to tell if all of it is true. And I hope it is, like some of the stories and not just with John Lennon, but with his voice and everything else that happened around this recording. I think this is a great project. It is. You can hear the vocal strain on a couple of tracks, more notably than others. And I kind of think it's like a mess. Like the album is a mess. But it's just so fun. It's just they're clearly having a good time. It's pretty obvious they're drunk and high. But I think the fun really shines through on this, and kind of the relaxed nature. He's trying to sing, he's doing his best, he's having fun. I think the covers are great. It all just has this kind of moodiness to it that I love. And I think this would be like a fun one just to put on for someone who doesn't know much and see their reaction to it, because it's just I do think it's like a beautiful mess, but somehow outshines this wonderful product um, that I think is greater than the sum of its parts. I think as individual songs, maybe a little less weaker, minus a couple, which I'll talk about later. But um, I think you gotta like sit down and listen to this thing, and it'll just shine through. I just couldn't stop smiling, and I thought it was a lot of fun. So it's a solid 8 for me, Pussycats.
It's funny how in my review I was talking about how sad it was listening to that album, and you're like, it was fun.
I had a blast. I had a blast. I'm sure he was struggling with his voice, but I hope the alcohol and drugs with John Lennon were helping him
Yeah,
out. And I think he had. I hope he had fun. Yeah.
I think he did. I think it's more that it's like the highs and lows of a party all in one album.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like the sad
True.
drunk mess, but also the
It's
doesn't
just a
care.
beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
mess. Yeah.
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 So my number 6 is Nilsson Sings Newman, which I guess I like a bit more than you guys do, but I've actually listened to it a few times. Like I keep going back to it. I mean, the fact that it's 24 minutes helps. Makes it pretty easy to put on, but I think it's got like a deceptive simplicity to it. Like you could listen to it and kind of miss all the little elements that make it great. And I just like the way that they work together. They've got this comfortable working relationship, Randy Newman and Harry do, and like you can feel that on the whole album. It's cozy. It's nice to listen to. I actually was listening to it this afternoon, sitting at the library, and it was just such a great setting for it. Like I just love the songs. I mean, I would say I probably love Harry more than Randy for now, for what I know, but I still think that Harry brings himself to these songs because they actually listened to a lot of Randy Newman's originals of some of these songs, and they were quite different. But would say I probably prefer Harry's version of a lot of them. So the stretch on the album for me that's just absolutely impeccable is the stretch from I'll Be Home to Dayton, Ohio, 1903. I just absolutely love that whole stretch. Just absolutely fantastic. And I would say like the second half of the album I like a bit better than the first half. But I still really like Love Story, Vine Street's great, Caroline, The Beehive State. Those are all great songs. I do agree on Yellow Man. That was a bit I don't know. I'm not so sure about these lyrics, but I guess it was a different time. Um but yeah, overall, like I just really like it, but I couldn't put it any higher again because it's like it's a nice listen. It's a nice simple listen, but there's better. So, and again, it does seem to have a really high regard for it. Like I think it's also bolded, and a lot of artists really love it too. So I guess they feel that connection to it. But yeah, it's an 8 for me. Another strong 8.
It has a very unique mood within the
Yeah.
discography, so I can see why. Obviously, you had it number 6, I had it number 10. Like I can see differences of opinion on that one for sure.
I almost rose it a little higher, but then I was like, maybe that's going a little too far. Like I kept debating, but yeah, I think 6 is a good spot for it.
I'll accept 6. Yeah. My number 5 is an album that's come up for both of you already. It's Harry. Um, yeah, I guess my big issue is my last 8. My big issue with this one is a lack of a classic Harry Nilsson song. Because even the two I mentioned before, like Many Rivers to Cross, Don't Forget Me on Pussycats, and then like Perfect Day, All I Think About Is You on Nilsson. Like all of these songs are at least like 8 out of 10 or higher, pretty much. But there isn't, especially when we get to the top 3, like there's like 4 or 5 classic Harry Nilsson songs on those ones. So this one, like I kind of agree with what Vanessa was saying about how comparing it to the albums around it, it kind of suffers. But I kind of love like the youthful energy. This is like the album he did after Aerial Ballet. And again, these first 3 albums, especially, like they're similar musically, but they kind of go off in different directions. Whereas Aerial Ballet was this like pure singer-songwriter pop album. This is a bit more like old-timey, which I in parts there's like a few like show tune type songs. I think the puppy song is such an infectious opener. It's so sweet and wholesome. Nobody cares about the railroads anymore is one of those like sounds like a 20s standard, but I really dig it. Open Your Window, one of the best originals on here, I think. Really mellow, love it. Here's my probably other than Pandemonium. I like this version of Mother Nature's Son better than the Beatles. There you go. I said it. I probably because I like Harry as a singer more than Paul, and the arrangements are incredibly similar. It's definitely my favorite of the three Beatles covers he did. I think Fairfax Rag almost sounds like a song from like SpongeBob or something. It's like very like I don't know. I don't know if theatrical is the word, but then there's the line like "Don't you wish that you were anywhere else but here?" And I put there Harry with the relatable lyrics, but then I realized it's a cover, so maybe I'm an idiot. Morning Glory song is one of those songs that's good, but I kind of don't know how it goes right now, but I enjoy it when I listen to it. Um, yeah. Marching Down Broadway is like a minute long and reminds me of Ween. Like Hey There Fancy Pants is kind of the vibe I get from Marching Down Broadway. Um, and then I guess The Lord Must Be in New York City was originally meant to be the song on Midnight Cowboy before they were like, we want to do Everybody's Talking instead. And then he kind of just used the same arrangement from Everybody's Talking and added some banjo. Because there was something about that song the first few times I heard it, I was like, what is it about this song that feels so familiar? I'm like, oh, it's just Everybody's Talking again. But I still think it's a good song. I think it's got some good lyrics. I think the banjo does actually add a lot. So it's not like it's worth listening to in its own right. And then yeah, Chris, very happy you gave a shout out to Rainmaker. What a banger. Drums are amazing. Rocks more than anything else he had done up to this point. Might be my favorite on the album. And then yeah, closes on a Randy Newman cover, which Simon Smith and the Amazing Dancing Bear, which I think is brilliant and a lot better than the Randy Newman version. Completely transforms the song into this like really fun track. So yeah, like I like all these songs. It's just yeah, there's a hump there of like it's not as coherent as some of the other ones, and it also doesn't have the classic songs. So as a selection of songs to listen to, it's lovely. But you know, compared to the high highs he'd reached already, wasn't going to rank any higher. So that's my number 5. Still an 8, but my last 8.
All right. Well, there you have it for Harry. Um, my number 5. Ooh, top 5. These are all good. These are all pretty good now. Um, this is gonna be the debut. Um, Pandemonium Shadow Show, whatever it's called. The Pandemonium one. A lot of covers, obviously. Um, I think he sounds like the acts of this time. But I just love his delivery. I love the simple songs. It's obvious he has like a very creative mind. And listening to this kind of first, I was pleasantly surprised. I had never heard any of these. I don't even knew that I like maybe I had heard Everybody's Talking, but that's on Aerial Ballet. I'll talk about that later. I'm sorry. Um, I don't know if I knew any on this record. I knew some of the original, She's Leaving Home and whatever. A lot of mouth sounds going on. Um, you know, um, there's some really fun songs here. I think 10 Little Indians, really like folky kind of bounces along. The concept of Indians like dying or disappearing isn't like the best imagery to me, but that's okay. Yeah, there's like some yodeling on 1941. I really like that song. I think it's pretty great. It's like semi-biographical. Um, Again, just these like kind of simple, effective melodies that you can like just, you know, you can hum along to. They get kind of stuck in my head. Um, Cuddly Toy, I like the brass. I like You Aren't the Only Choo Choo Train to Be Left Out in the Rain. Um, I have more wah-wahs. He's having fun with his voice clearly. So yeah, I that's true. Hymns Out of Tune, it's like a waltz. I don't know. I think it's in 3/4, but there's these bells that come in and they're horrible. I'd probably think this was a great track if not for the bells that are just they refuse to go away. Um, you can't do that. Sleep Late, My Lady Friend. I just think these are just great performances by Harry. Most of them covers, but I think he does really well for himself in his time. I think he brings some personality, and for a debut record, I mean, I think it's pretty telling that he was made to succeed. So I was very happy with this record. I again had not really heard anything about it, so it's a strong 8 for me. My number 5.
Also my number 5. Um, kind of a lot of similar points. Like it's like a lush sounding, gorgeous pop album of the time, but he kind of brings his own unique voice to it. Like it's not, I don't think it's, I think he was like a fresh voice on the scene, I would say, hearing this album. I actually liked the bells on that song. I said it was jangly, but like not in a jangle pop sense, more in a bell and chime sense. But I did enjoy that aspect of it. Um, Cuddly Toy is catchy and fun, but I also like that it's got some slight melancholy to it at times. Like when he says that line, "You're not the kind of girl to tell your mother." It's just kind of like it's just like a little hint, which I think is very effective. 1941, really like, of course, that's a classic, I think. And yeah, his quirkiness is apparent from the beginning. It's not as pronounced as it would become, but you can tell that he's not like just singing your normal garden variety pop songs. He's got a little bit of a twist to his lyrical themes and stuff. So that's cool. And it's cool to see that so early on. Sleep Late, My Lady Friend is really pretty. I really like that one. Has some great strings on it. Without Her is another highlight for me as well. And his cover of River Deep Mountain High, like I feel like shouldn't work, but somehow it absolutely does. And it closes the album very well. So yeah, it's a strong 8 for me as well. But like it's kind of funny because I don't know if thinking about it, it's like not necessarily one I would think that I'd have high, but every time I listen to it, it can't really be anywhere else. So yeah.
I'm quite glad neither of you had that much higher. I was kind of worried that someone would have that number 1 and I'd have loads of egg on my face. Speaking of egg on my face, is finally now is the time for me to talk about the point. Which Chris shakes his head. He's so disappointed in me. Yeah, I kind of figured that this is not an album for everybody. But God, if it is for me, it is definitely an album for me. It is such a jolly, pleasant, summery, uplifting, whimsical, adventurous ride. And I guess a lot of my love of this album comes from I've never heard anything else like it in my entire life. And yeah, I get the point about the narration. That's probably why I couldn't put it higher than number 4, because I pretty much love everything about this album. But because of the way it is, I can't be like it's better than Nilsson Schmilsson. Like that would be insane. So I get your point there. But all 6 songs are just classic Harry Nilsson songs, in my opinion. Everything's Got 'Em is a really brilliant opener, very like deceptively simple. And I think in the hands of most artists, this album could have turned out like quite badly. And maybe people think that it did turn out badly. But you guys pointing out Me and My Arrow, most famous song on the album, and rightly so. I'm not going to argue that. It is amazing, so sweet, just like kind of like a sequel to the Puppy song almost. I think Polly High is another nice song, probably the weakest of the actual songs. I love Think About Your Troubles. It is just amazing, like so comforting. Um, yeah, it's just like making a cup of tea and think about the bubbles. It's like, I don't know, there's just something really nice about all these songs. I think Lifeline is really terrific as well. The vocals on that song are so good, like so passionate. POV Waltz is really sweet. Are You Sleeping as well, really nice. And I do enjoy the narration. I've got to say, it's you can hear him like turning the pages of his script as he's doing this, and he just gives it his all. Like especially towards the end, he's doing all the voices and like he's doing like sound effects with his mouth, which is like what he was born to do, given all the wah wahs and babas that he's doing throughout all this discography. So yeah, I get it if it's not for you, but I don't know. There's plenty of room in my heart for the wondrous adventure of the point, and there always will be. And I'm so glad to have it. And if I ever do have kids, this is going to be listened to by them at a young age because I think it is his highest rated on Radio Music, which I agree is a bit silly. Um, and I think that is a lot of nostalgia of people who love the TV movie and were just like, "Oh my god, there's a soundtrack," and then they remember all the songs, and yeah. So maybe that's got something to do with it. And it also, I think, it has a lot less ratings than the big ones as well, which never helps. But yeah, I see why you guys aren't as hot on it, but that's not going to make me change my mind. I love the point, and it makes me happy every time I listen to it. So.
That's fair. I get it. Wales is some magical forest land, and the point just fits the whole upbringing of your childhood, Tom. Where I'm from, okay? Just kidding. Yeah, I was kind of shocked at how high it was, and then I felt bad that I was trashing like a children's album. But anyway,
It's fine. It's fine. You've probably done worse things in your life. I'm fine.
Yeah, probably. We're at number 4 now. Okay, these are really good. These are really good records. Um, it's Dark Schmilson time. Son of Schmilson is my number 4. Um, I like this one, and no one's talked about it, so Tom has it even higher. Um, this is a nice shakeup. And I think there's a lot of great tracks on this record. Obviously You're Breaking My Heart, Spaceman Lottery Song, really great sequence. I think overall the album is maybe a little bit messy. Like the overall sequence of the album, just those 3 songs in order are awesome, and then I think the rest of it kind of breaks. Um, I like it though. I don't really care. I like the mess. It kind of does feel a little darker, and I like that. The production sounds awesome on like all of this. You got Peter Frampton, Ringo, George on credits, and it was stacked, and I think it really shines through frequently on this record. Ambush is the least popular song on Spotify by like a large margin. But I really like it, so shows what I know about what should be popular. Um, my only gripe, I think, with this album are I think the ending is kind of weak. I think the last 2 songs could probably be chopped, and I would be just as happy. I'm sorry. I know, I'm sorry. I'm sure Harry would not be happy with me saying that, so don't tell him. But I don't really care about that. Again, a little messy. I don't care. I think the production sounds great. If the flow of the album is my biggest complaint, then I think that's being really nitpicky. This is a strong 8 for me. I will return to this album frequently. I really like it.
My number 4 is another messy album, but a different one, Pussycats, which is a fascinating album. It's yeah, I mean, I was sort of prepared for that in a way. Like I knew its reputation, of course, but it's just it somehow works so well for me, like despite the fact that it's like totally a mess and it shouldn't work at all. But like and it makes sense that at the time people were like totally confused by it because when you hear Harry Nilsson and John Lennon are going to make an album together, you're not expecting this. There's no way you could be. But I think that's awesome. And when you look at his whole career retrospectively, it doesn't seem quite as crazy, like because he's always done weird, crazy, quirky things, and he's always had his personality in his music. So it makes more sense, I think, looking at it now than it probably would have made sense back in 1974. Um, yeah, so the vocal changes are apparent, obviously, but I think sometimes it really enhances some of the songs in a way, like Don't Forget Me, especially. Like, if that had been done with his older vocals and it's more straight performance, I don't know if it would have been as effective for me. Like, hearing it with the cracks and the kind of the scars, I guess, it just really, really works. And I will talk about that more later. And like how it starts with Many Rivers to Cross, obviously right away you know that his voice has changed, but again, like it works so well with the song, like it just brings that emotion to it. And I like the cover of Subterranean Homesick Blues. It's like this ramshackle version of the song that, you know, you wouldn't think should work, but I just really like how it works. And the saxophone on it is quite unexpected, but I like that element. And All My Life right after Don't Forget Me, that's just classic Harry, just total tonal shift, but works so well. Um, and yeah, like you were both saying earlier, like Old Forgotten Soldier is where his voice definitely sounds the worst, but still like the song, and I still think it works. But what I really love at the end is that version of Rock Around the Clock that's like this like proto punk kind of thing, which is not something you would ever expect on an album like this. Like, just thought that was super cool, especially after like this super emotional Black Sails, and you go right into that. Like, it's just like whoa. But yeah, no, I just absolutely love it, and also I don't mind the island vibes on Mucho Mungo Mount Elga, but as much as I do later on, but they work here. So yeah, it's a strong four. It's right on the border, I would say, and maybe with time, because it's kind of one of those albums that you want more time with. You just keep wanting to go back to because there's like almost so much to unpack that you need that time. So I think this is one that can only grow for me. And I like this side of him as I think will become apparent as the rest of my ranking comes down. So
Interesting. I'm not sure what that means, but okay. Vanessa and I have the same top three, which is interesting. Um, so yeah, I mean the point is one of my children as well, but these are really my children, these top three. And sorry to disappoint everyone, but I've got to put the album that I got my channel name from at number three, Nilsson Schmilsson
I
Land.
knew it. I knew it.
Yeah, I'm a hack. I mean, if we were just talking about the best songs in this album, this would be an easy 10. It might be at the top of the list. But more than any of his other albums, this has a quality divide, I think. And I've thought that since the first time I heard it, but sometimes when like the best songs you love so much, you don't really mind the less good songs being there. It's like, it's fine, you know. It's his most successful album, and it's pretty clear to see why. It's his best produced album. I mean, if you ever needed an opening 2-track punch to get you into an album, Gotta Get Up and Driving Along, it just doesn't really get any better than that. They're both going to be showing up on my songs list. Um, and then straight away, it's Early in the Morning, which I'm just like, I've never liked that song. It just doesn't do anything for me. It's just repetitive and just happens and then it's over. But you go straight into the Moonbeam song, which is anything but forgettable. It is beautiful. And sort of, yeah, I guess this is more of like a fuller produced album than what came before, but Moonbeam Song probably wouldn't have felt out of place on his earlier work. I think Down is a cool rocker. The horns are really great, really superb vocal performance as well. Without You is Without You. I mean, what is there to be said? It's essential in every way. For a lot of people, it might be the only Harry Nilsson song that they know. And then they go straight into Coconut, which, of all the tonal whiplash that you get in the discography, I think Without You into Coconut has got to be the most apparent. It's hilarious, infectious. The doctor. It's so great. I didn't really consider it for the songs list. I don't know why. Maybe because I consider it more of like a funny joke song than a song that I reach for that often. But whenever I do hear it, it's an absolute blast. And then the cover of Let the Good Times Roll, I'm just like, it's just like, come on. It's like he put so much effort into writing like these perfect pop songs. Obviously, the cover of Without You as well. And then he's just sort of like, oh, we need two more songs. Let's just chuck Let the Good Times Roll and Early in the Morning on. I'm just like, yeah. But album does end very strong. You get Jump Into the Fire, which is amazing. The extended version is very cool. I might prefer the single version, but I love the jam in the second half of the song, very satisfying. And I'll Never Leave You is a pretty good closer as well. Works well to end the album. And yeah, as far as like pop rock goes, it rarely gets as like well crafted and polished as this. And really all it came down to is that compared to my number two, this just had more skips. That's all it really, I mean, I love this album. It's like truly like a desert island disc for me. I love Harry Nilsson, as you may know. But yeah, I don't know. I just wish the whole album was as good as like Gotta Get Up, Driving Along, Without You, Moonbeam Song. That's kind of where I'm at. But I still love it.
Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be as high as I wanted it on your list, but that's okay. My number three is Nilsson. I love this one.
It's like
Um,
I was waiting for you to say
that's it.
Nilsson.
No, no, sorry. Knilson. Um, what a comeback. Holy smokes. This is just incredible. This would have been just the coolest swan song album, especially with Perfect Day. That could have been his last recorded song, and it would have been just heroic. But okay, fine. Um, his voice is like, it's like different now. It's no longer. It doesn't sound so damaged, but it sounds like he's used his used the damage to his own benefit, and he sounds so much more confident. Um, the style of these songs is so much fun. I just love like all of them, and I think it's just a strong album. I don't think there's like any stinkers here. It is a little bit more earnest, but and it feels kind of focused, which maybe he didn't have as much fun making, but he still has songs like the Who Done It and Going Down, and um I think he's having a good time. I love Who Done It. I think that's hilarious. As soon as I realized what was happening in the song, I'm like, intently listening, trying to figure it out. Um, and that's just like a fun, silly track that I think shows he's still kind of, yeah, he's retained his sense of who he is. And God, this is just such a winner for the late period Nelson. I love the album cover. It's goofy. It's as like psychedelic as some of the songs. The double letters, double everything. It's just this is just a clear classic. I was so happy when I put this on after the string of lows after Sandman and Do It on Monday. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not getting out of this. And then came Nelson, and I'm like, this is great. So he was obviously capable throughout his career of greatness, and I think this one really stands above most of most of the discography in total for me. But I think this is just a great effort. Could have been his last one. It wasn't, but maybe I'll count it as his last one. So yeah. This is an 8. This is a very strong 8. I will come back to this all the time for sure.
Love to hear that.
Nice. So my number 3, I don't know, like it could be a little controversial that it's this low. It's Aerial Ballet. I like it a lot. Obviously, it's my number 3 out of 14, so it's not like I hate it. But I just like his sound a little later on better. Like what he's doing in the early 70s compared to this is just hits better for me. Like I love all the songs on this. I mean, it's got my favorite version of One on it, of course, and Everybody's Talking, which is 2 classics. And it's enjoyable album start to finish. I have nothing to complain about really. And it's got a good variety of different songs but it all still ties together as a cohesive unit. It has a cohesive sound. There's lots of great highlights and every song is good to great. But like I said, it's just those 2 albums I have above it just hit a little harder, are just the ones I want to listen to just a little bit more. And I've listened to this a number of times, almost trying to unlock it because I know a lot of people really love it. And I'm like, what am I missing to elevate it to that level? And I don't know. But I still love it. I mean, obviously, it's in a middle position, as you always say on the channel. So, I mean, it's and Good Old Desk. That's just a fantastic little song. Like, who else could write such a beautiful song about a desk? No one could. But Harry does it. And Don't Leave Me is absolutely gorgeous. He sounds great. I detect a mild like bossa nova flavor to some of these songs, which I think that was trendy at the time, so that kind of makes sense. But it works here. It's cool. It's not overpowering. Mr. Richland's favorite song. It's bouncy and fun. It's whimsical, but it's got a balance of not being too silly. Like it doesn't go too far. So that he's always good at managing, or not always, but often good at managing that. So works together here. And of course, like I said, Everybody's Talking. It's a classic. Probably one of the few songs I knew beforehand. And I like the little reprise of Little Cowboy. It's a cute little interlude. It works really well. It flows really, really well into Mr. Tinker. And that also kind of has elements that we revisit on One with like the ba ba ba, like then they flow together so well. So he really, really mastered the cohesive sound on this. But like I said, it's just not quite my top album, but it's still a 9. So I still like it a lot. Still great. So
Yeah, no, I was just joking. I can't complain. Top three is great. I'm now very intrigued to see what you have at number 1. Interesting. I think you both knew what my number 1 was going to be from the start. I think everybody who's watched my channel and my favorite album series knows what's going to be number 1. So that just leaves my number 2, Son of Schmilsson. I wrote down that this is the Empire Strikes Back to Nilsson Schmilsson Star Wars. You know, it's more unpredictable, it's more exciting, and for me, it's just a better complete package. But of course, you have to have the caveat that it was the beginning of the end of his career, because the label didn't like this, his fans didn't like this, the charts certainly didn't like this. So yeah, but I just love everything about it. Take 54 storms right out the blocks with so much humor and bounce. I love the funny gag outro as well, which is then immediately cut across with the opening piano chords of Remember Christmas, which is this like sorrowful, like beautiful ballad, one of his best. And the vocal performance on that is amazing. You have the psychedelic wall of sound of Spaceman. You have the stripped back beauty of Turn on Your Radio. You have the jokey Johnny Cash impression of Joy. You have so many different twists and turns. George Harrison, when asked what his favorite Harry Nilsson song is, said, "Oh, the one, Fuck You." So that song's great as well. You have the ridiculous I'd Rather Be Dead with the help of a choir of old people, which I love so much. And I really also like the closer, to be honest, The Most Beautiful World in the World, which morphs from this like tropical island jam into a pseudo traditional pop standard with Harry again hinting at his next move before our very eyes. He was playing, we were playing checkers and he was playing chess, basically. Of course, you can't forget the Lottery song, one of my all-time favorite Nilsson songs. Its beauty on me is not. Its beauty is not lost on me one bit. And then yeah, At My Front Door is pretty good. I enjoy that one. Ambush is pretty clearly the weakest song for me. Sorry, Chris. But yeah, I just think even as the part of the album, it's really good. And yeah, I think it's pretty amazing that he made this following this like massive selling album. It's just like I'm gonna make crazy, crazy, weird genre splicing mishmash of an album. And yeah, I think it's quite unusual that all three of us have ranked it quite high because I do think some people might be put off, but I kind of trusted that you two would be up to the task. You know, it's proto ween as I like to call it. And yeah, I think I love Nilsson Schmilsson as well, but again, it just boils down to this has less moments where I'm like, yeah, it's pretty much all smiles all the way through. Very strong 9. Can't quite get it over the line to a full score, but that'll come. That'll come. And yeah, it was in my top 5 of 1972 when we did the deep dive, which I know made some people roll their eyes, but I would be inauthentic of me to not have it up there. So love Sanders Schmilsson in all its chaotic, messy glory.
Yeah, yeah, it is messy, but it's a lot of fun. I think it's kind of an instant classic, regardless of what it did to his career. That's just fun lore for the rest of us. Sorry, Harry. Okay, my number 2 is Aerial Ballet. So sorry, Tom. It's
That's
pretty
fine.
good.
I kind of guessed. Yeah.
It's pretty good. Pretty whimsical album. It's kind of a breeze to listen to. Um, and the songwriting is so clever, so strong. He uses his voice, in a lot of fun ways, as he does in many albums, but it's, pretty apparent here when he's pretty young. Um, Daddy's song has fun horns and bebop do bops is what I wrote, something like that. My old man is a good man, does the best he can. His dad walked out on him when he was like a child, he had to like figure his own life out. And story is like he dropped out of college and um learned how to program, so he worked at a bank. And then they find out he lied about having a college degree, but they kept him on because he was the only guy who knew how to like code at the bank. And then he quit that successful IT career to write music. And it's the kind of stuff he was writing about. Like a writing desk. Um which is odd, but hey, sometimes it's all you got. And people have written love songs to Stranger Things, so um I think it's overall much more refined sound than Pandemonium, obviously. Little Cowboy, Everybody's Talking, Mr. Tinker, One, I think are all just great, great sounding tracks. I love the way his voice just kind of, I don't know, it's just a breeze to listen to. It's so nice. His voice is just calm, confident, and he's just having fun. So, um, I don't really have many issues with this album at all. Um, Willing of Willow, I like. Pretty fun end song. Um, it feels hopeful and exciting for the bath and some some vocal flair. Um, it's a short, sweet record. I know that it's so highly regarded, and I don't quite get to that level with it, but um, I do put it a little bit above Son of Schmilsson because I think it is like more cohesive, and I think objectively like the songs are better written. So it's a strong 8. I can't quite get to 9 with it. I'm so sorry, Tom. But it did grow on me. I listened to it a couple times, and I think I understand it. I can't quite get to the highest spot or get to that 10 with it or anything, but um it's definitely a fun one, and I think it has a lot of songs that you can cherry pick out, and um really really great performances. So that's Aerial Ballet at number 2, all the way down at number 2.
I think, yeah, I think it is highly regarded, but I think because of the people that you've spoken to about it, you think it's more higher regarded than it is. I think the general consensus is probably Nilsson Schmilson's his best album, I would say. But
Yeah, I don't know.
maybe not. Maybe that's just me trying
I
it.
really
Internet,
only
I
you
didn't
know.
know.
pick the obvious number one.
Hmm.
So, will I pick the obvious number one or will I not? I will not. I had an assumed number one. I thought Nilsson Schmilsson was going to be my number one, but it is not. It is my number 2. I love it. I absolutely love it. But I don't know, like Tom said, like, yeah, I still have it with a very high score, higher than you, but yeah, it doesn't quite, it's not quite to the level of my number one for me. I don't know. There's just a little bit of something, but I still absolutely love it. I love every song. It's great. Gotta Get Up is a perfect album opener. It just gets you right into the swing of things, and it's immediately apparent that he's got a new energy here. Like he's doing something different than what he was before, and he's inspired, and he's just taking this on, and it's fantastic. Sounds great. And like it goes right into Driving Along, and Early in the Morning. I think they all kind of, to me, they all work together as this like suite of like a ode to everyday life kind of thing. Like just like what we do every day. You're driving along, you got to get up. It's early in the, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I just kind of liked that flow together. I thought that was cool. And then we go right into the Moonbeam song, which is just absolutely gorgeous and amazing, and like such a beautiful song. Totally changes the tone of the album. And then we go into Down, which to me, it's like you can really see his Beatles inspiration on that one. Like it really is very Beatles-esque to me. And it just really seems to show that he's marking his transition into a more full sound. Like he's going away from that more like Baroque kind of or folky kind of sound he was doing before, and he's now doing like full on pop rock. And of course, his version of Without You is the definitive version. I mean, I'm a huge Mariah Carey fan, but she cannot hold a candle to him on this song. So sorry, Mariah, you can't do it. But and even Badfinger, who wrote the song, it's still not the definitive version. He owns this song. Like it's so easy to forget he didn't write this song. It's grand, but it's still restrained. It's like got the perfect amount of emotion at every point. And then we go to Coconut, which, as you said, it's pretty funny transition, but it's awesome. I mean, it's one of the things you love about him, that he has these transitions and he does the unexpected, and it is a lot of fun. But again, like Tom said, like I love it and I think it's a fun song, but it's not on my top song list. It's not even in my honorable mentions. Like I realized that after. I was like, man, I didn't even think about Coconut, but I still love it. Let the Good Times Roll I thought that was a fun cover. I can see where it would be like a bit of a down point, but I like it. It doesn't necessarily stand out, but the bar is set very high here. So, I mean, it's hard for everything to stand out. Jump Into the Fire is like, it's really cool. Like it shows that he can really rock when he wants to. Like you see this 7-minute song on this album, and you think, what the hell is that going to be? Right. Like, but it's just this awesome, like rock song, like, and something you wouldn't expect. So I really like that, and just got that cool drum solo, which usually I'm not super excited about drum solos, but I think it really works on this song. So it's a cool song. And I'll Never Leave You is a great way to end the album. Love the strings and the horn arrangements, and it's kind of like it hints towards that Great American Songbook sort of sound he's going to do a couple albums later. It kind of gives us a little hint of that. So yeah, it's a 10 for me. I love the album, but I love my number one just a little bit more.
Wow. Is Vanessa? No, she's not a big Harry Nilsson fan than me. It's impossible. I gave Do It on Monday a 7. No one else on planet Earth does that. Um, so 3 different number ones. That's exciting. All equally valid, I would say. But mine's the most valid because it's mine. Kidding. Aerial Ballet, my number 1. Pretty easy. Didn't really have to think too much about it. Where it was like my 14th favorite album of all time, something like that. It just hits home to me, unlike anything else. It's sort of been hinted by all 3 of us at one point or another, but it's sort of this breezy, easy listening pop songwriting with a lot of like sadness, especially on this album. Like the lyrics are really, really good. Yeah, I think Daddy's song kind of plays as like sarcastic, knowing like the relationship with his dad. Technically not on the album, but it's included on streaming as like a bonus track, and they just put it at this front. So like the vinyl copy I have opens with Good Old Desk, which I love. I love Good Old Desk, but I think Daddy's song is a better opener, especially since they reprise the beginning of it at the end of Bath as well. Yeah, Good Old Desk is a songwriting marvel. The arrangement really helps the song. I kind of love the simple concept of it. What I take it as very literal meaning is just that he is sort of expressing his love for solitude and being able to be, working on songs, working on ideas, and not having to interact with someone. So in that way, it's sort of like an anti-love song in a way, which is really cool. Don't Leave Me, such a banger, such a banger. So easy to listen to. Love his vocals on it. And then Mr. Richland's song can't quite reach the lofty heights of the previous 2 songs, but kind of what Vanessa was saying, it's like when the bar is set so high, it's like, what are you going to do? Like, there's going to be songs that aren't quite as great, and I do still think it's really great. I love both editions of Little Cowboy. They break up the album really nicely. I think Together is a real gem of a pop song as well, quite underrated. I think it's really, really good. Could have been a hit single if there wasn't already one on the album. And then what can be said about Everybody's Talking that hasn't already been said? Like, it's one of my favorite songs of the entire decade. Every element of it is perfect, and I'll talk about it later. Song neither of you mentioned, I Said Goodbye to Me. Oh my god, that is one of my favorites. It's such this beautiful, poignant, probably the most overtly sad songs on the album. And he's in the wah wah again. It's like it's kind of comical, but also like full of pain. Like he just doesn't want to say words anymore because the words aren't doing justice to his feelings. So he just kind of does a little wah wah. I think Mr. Tinker is a real vocal showcase. Really good. I do love his version of One, but I actually prefer the Amy Mann version the most because that has backing vocals singing lyrics from Without Her and from Together over the top of the melody of the song, which is so cool. So whoever arranged the song was clearly a massive Harry Nilsson fan. So that sort of reimagining of the song I really love. If you haven't heard it, it's worth checking out. Wailing in the Willow, so smooth and pleasant. Another gem on an album full of them. And then, yeah, Bath is just the perfect way to close. Similarly to Good Old Desk, it's just like finding optimism in like the most mundane things. I'm leaving here this morning, but I don't know where I've been. I'm going home to take my bath, but I'll be back again. And he sure would be back to make some other records, but none of them quite hit the majestic, beautiful heights of Aerial Ballet for my money. And I'm intrigued to hear what you guys have to say about your number ones, because I love both those albums too.
Well, yeah, well put. It's not gonna make it better for me, but I think your your reasoning makes sense. Obviously my number 1 is Nilsson Schmilsson. and kind of a, I don't know, not to put the other records down, but I think a healthy margin. This is like his best work. Um, oh my God. This came after The Point. Like, imagine how happy I was listening to this after the Forest album. All right. Um, this album just like romps, you know? I mean, Gotta Get Up just like forces you awake. You're like, I'm here, I'm present. This is a great alarm clock song. I'm told some TV show does that. I haven't seen it, but anyway, the joke's been made before, but I've done it IRL and it works. Just fun, rushed energy, but kind of excited too. Driving Away is like I kind of like Vanessa's take of like a, it's just a suite of a morning. Um, Interesting concept. He talks about people like driving away and not paying attention with each other and like growing farther apart. And wonder what Harry's take of like the internet age would be with, smartphones. If that would be symbolic of people distancing themselves. Anyway, I love Early in the Morning. Didn't know it was a cover. Um, I think his interpretation is pretty great. I feel like there's a good amount of soul, and I like the way he says "Early in the morning." Um, I love Moonbeam Song and Down. Um, I think they keep the album moving at a good pace. Without You, yeah, holy cow. It's just I don't know if any of the previous like vocal flares or the wah wahs, bop bops could have prepared you for, the explosion of his voice that was realized here. And this is just timeless. I mean, this will never get old to me, and it's just beautiful. Um, this is like the power of his voice being realized, I think. And, you know, um, you compare this to a song about a desk, and it's like it's a stark contrast, right? It really is, and I think it shows some tremendous progression. However, then you have Coconut, right? Um, I always like this. I also am not going to talk about it later. So when you said that, Tom, I'm like, idiot, I got it somewhere here. And it's nowhere here, actually. Always loved it since the commercial. Had it on my little MP3 player. It's what I immediately would first think of when I used to think of Harry Nilsson because it was all I really knew. And now let me get this straight. It's just so good. I love it. I don't care. Um, Let the Good Times Roll. I think it's a great cover. I think it's fun. Um, I think his voice sounds cool on it, and I think it fits well in this album. Um, and Jump Into the Fire is just another banger. I mean, it when the bass line hits, you know it's coming. And his voice is so good. It's confident. It's basically like a hard rock song. I mean, it really is. He's got these like controlled wails and we can make each other happy kind of repeating. Oh man, it goes so hard. This song rocks. I really wish he had done more kind of harder rock stuff. I think he really could have pulled it off. And then I'll Never Leave You is like a perfect closer. Maybe the best since Perfect Day, um, for an album closer. So I think I'm gonna top at 9 for Harry Nilsson. I'm sorry I can't get there. But this album is a strong 9. The songwriting, performances, even of the covers. I mean, frankly, I didn't know some of them were covers, so I had to like look into that to realize that he wasn't the writer. Some of them were quite old, so I think he modernized them and put them into cool contexts. And yeah, I think there's fun tunes on Aerial Ballet. I just think this is a more mature sound, and songs about puppies and love letters to desks aren't gonna cut it over Jump Into the Fire Without You. I'm sorry. Um, I think in the context of listening to all these albums, the progression was really fun to listen to. And it did like peak here for me, but obviously I found some fun stuff afterwards and some cool stuff before leading up to it. Um, I think this was overall a very good time, and it's a strong 9. This album will forever be in rotation. Um, yeah, just forever. Yeah.
I told you, Chris, it's not a song about a desk. It's an ode to solitude. Okay, so
Yeah, all right.
All right, so my number one, Son of Schmilson, which was an unexpected number one, but I could not put it anywhere else. I absolutely just fell in love with it. Like the first time I heard it, actually was the first Harry Nilsson album I ever heard, which I wasn't ready for it then because I only really knew the singles and I was not expecting this album. So I had it at a 4 or sorry, an 8 for a long time. But I don't know, it just hit this time. Like as soon as I hear Take 54, I'm like, hell yes, I'm ready to listen to this album. I love this album. It's a mess. It, I mean, it's not perfect. It's messy, it's ramshackle, it's crazy, but that's what I love about it. Like, it's just everything kind of dialed up to 11 in the best way for me. And I love Take 54. I'll talk about that later. Like, I just absolutely love that song. Opens the album so great. And that little transition with like the Dracula voice and like, where did you get the sound effects? RCA records and tapes. I just love that every time. Like, usually like, spoken word interludes are not my favorite thing, but I will give it a pass on this album because I love it. And then we go right into Remember Christmas, which is like totally different, but it's a beautiful song. Absolutely love it. Pretty piano, wistful tone, gorgeous arrangements. It's just fantastic. Joy, that it's like this country song, which is just really cool. I love the way he even has like a little country twang in his voice, and it's so much fun. And it actually kind of makes me think of Ween and 12 Golden Country Greats is kind of what it made me think of, just that sort of idea of doing an absurd country song. So I thought that was really cool. But then at the end where he says, Joy, I know you're out there. I want you to turn on your radio and listen to my song. And then it goes right into turn on your radio. And that's just such a cool little transition. And it's a little more of a traditional pop song, but it still works really well in the context of the album, I think. And then You're Breaking My Heart. Well, again, I will talk about that later. Actually, a lot of this whole stretch of songs, You're Breaking My Heart, Spaceman, Lottery Song, they're all like such bangers. Like, absolutely love them. We'll be talking about them more later. At my front door where he burps at the beginning, that's pretty funny. And sometimes I forget about it and it just always takes me by surprise. It's just such a fun transition from the prettiness of the Lottery Song. It's just classic Harry. Ambush, I like Ambush a lot too. I like the rockin' vocals, the gritty sound. It's really cool. And like it's got that extended jam kind of quality to it, but I think it really works. And I'd Rather Be Dead, just fantastic, so absurd. So getting that seniors choir to sing on that song is it's just so crazy, but like it works so well. I just absolutely love it. And then The Most Beautiful World in the World, love that as a closer. It's just that gargling is just so funny. Like, I don't know, I just absolutely love it. Like, and I listened to it probably 6 times leading up to this, like the extra from the other times I heard it. So I knew it had to be my number one. So
wow. So if you made it through this video, I think nearly 2 hours. I don't know. We'll find out. Easily the longest video on the channel. Thank you for your persistence, especially if you don't like Harry Nilsson. That's impressive. Or if you don't know Harry Nilsson. Thank you very much to Chris and Vanessa for joining me. And I'm going to spring this on now. I mean, you guys know it's happening, but I'm going to announce it now. The three of us have a little series that we are going to be embarking on. We don't know when it's going to be beginning because I think all three of us have some listening prep we want to do. And I don't want to start it at a point where we're all like rushing to listen to things. But we are going to be going through every year from 1965 to the present day and picking our favorite albums and songs of each year. It's going to be a very fun exercise, especially with the three of us. I think you will have realized from our discussions here, we have enough similarities in our tastes, but also points where we converge, pun intended. And basically, yeah, that is going to be coming, and I'm very excited about it. And I hope you guys are. I mean, you two more than the viewers. Yeah. I don't care what the viewers think.
I'm ready.
Well, I'm not ready, but I'm
mentally
mentally
me neither. Give me some time.
But yeah, that is going to be coming. So you probably won't see Vanessa and Chris for many discography rankings just because it's going to be taking up a lot of our time. But in the future, I won't rule it out, of course. Thank you again for watching this. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been a very interesting experience. There were no fights. We're all friends still.
Miraculously.
And as I sit here at my good old desk, I thank you for watching, and I'll guide you into the direction of the songs video, which may or may not be out depending when you're watching this. Probably will be a lot shorter than this as well. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.